People County Break.
Recording in progress.
Looks like we have one more coming in.
It's like one more kind of drift in here.
Trash.
All right, so we have your red counts as part of the board, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. First thing on the agenda is matters from the public. Do we have any? I think not, I guess. All right, moving on. Draft minutes from the May 18th meeting. Have any comments or corrections?
I don't think we got to the part about topics for future meetings. I felt like we were running over. We never actually addressed that. I don't know if anyone else remembers that or not.
Yes, and that's why it says none on the meet on.
Okay.
That's what. Yeah, we didn't do that. I think the minutes reflect that.
Yes.
So, any other comments?
Yeah, I noticed that I have no designation of, I'm in Albemarle County.
Okay.
I just fixed that, I might as well be a man without.
Yeah, all right.
The county.
All right, with that correction, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'm a motion to approve the minutes with correction.
Okay. And Lucas seconded, all in favor? Motion carried. All right, first thing is an update on the regional transit vision plan.
That would be me.
Okay.
So I think you're all aware that we've been conducting a regional transit vision plan. We started a little over a year ago. And I'm here to give you an update. We can go to the next slide. So tonight, Ruth's going to share my slides. I'll just give you some background on the project, refresh everybody on it, talk about the vision and the goals that the project identified from the community, talk about the vision concepts, and then our second and final page of public engagement. So, slide 4. So the vision plan is a DRPT funded technical assistance grant. DRPT stands for the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. Albemarle County and the City of Charlottesville and TJPDC applied for the grant, and Albemarle and the City of Charlottesville funded the 50% match for the grant. Some of the comments from the stakeholders in the meeting requested more public involvement, so we presented to all of the rural board of supervisors, and we've been reaching out to the community there through flyers and a survey. We also had some focus groups in the rural communities. We are doing this presentation for a lot of different groups like housing, and you guys trying to really get out as much as we can, and I'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. So far we have shared like a draft vision statement, and I'm going to go over that with you. So we've assessed, the consultants did a network analysis of the transportation needs for the community. They looked at jobs and housing and where people live and where they need to go. They also looked at low-income populations and populations that are dependent on transit, and identified kind of the needs and where, you know, the land use is conductive to using transit versus other types of transportation. Then they engaged the community and the stakeholders for public input. They developed, we had a survey, a public meeting, a stakeholder meeting, and a bunch of presentations at committees similar to this one, where we asked community members what they wanted for transit, what their vision was for the community, and helped them identify goals. And then we developed a network, kind of like scenarios of services that would meet those goals, and we kind of evaluated them based on the goals. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, is engaging the community to say, here's what we've developed for services. What do you think about it? Do they meet the goals that we've identified?
I wonder if I could ask a quick question.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt in the middle, but have you talked to businesses around the area and gone into businesses and asked them, their employees, and how far a circumference or radius have you gone out?
So we've covered a lot. We've covered all of the rural counties, so Greene, Savannah. We actually included Buckingham because John provides service there. Nelson, Louisa, and then Albemarle, the City of Charlottesville. As far as employers, we've looked at where employers are and considered them in the network analysis. And we're working with UVA, and we talked with them a lot about their needs.
That didn't answer the question exactly. You haven't gone to the businesses themselves and done surveys from their employees from that standpoint. So you're going from in out rather than from out in a little bit. It seems to me that you should cover you should go into the businesses, because they're the ones who are going to do a lot of traveling and see, what the employees think is their transportation needs. How many are going in their car now? How many would go in bus or whatever transit you would think?
Okay. Thank you. Next slide. So, I just want to give a little background on the vision plan and then the next step in this process, which is a governance study. And so what we're doing right now is kind of looking at like what we would like to buy, like what we want our services to look like, and designing those as to, to meet the needs that have been identified. We did do two different types of kind of scenarios or networks of services. One is constrained and the other one is unconstrained. And the constrained vision, we gave ourselves a budget of about $30 million a year. And I'll get more into that later. But that was based on the consultants recommended looking at the structure that Central Virginia Regional Transit Authority set themselves up to do. And if we use their system, like their structure, we would bring in about $29 million more for transit a year. And so that was kind of what the consultants based their recommendations on. And then we did an unconstrained vision, which is, the sky's the limit. Let's look at everything that we'd like to see. So that's kind of, this is saying, here's what we would like to see. And then the governance study, which is going to start in August, is here's how we can pay for it and manage it. So we're looking at the next steps. And the goals that were identified through the first round of public engagement had three themes. The first theme was equity, to expand opportunities for all residents and represent the needs of both the urban and the rural communities. The rural communities were really engaged in this process, and we reached out to them more and more as they responded. Multimodality was the second need identified, and that was to reduce reliance on automobiles. And the third was climate change to help protect the environment. There's a pretty active group of citizens who are really engaged to feel strongly that transit is one of the answers to mitigate climate change. And so the vision concepts, next slide. We have the constrained vision and the unconstrained vision, and I went into a little bit about how we came up with the funding for that and the numbers. We wanted to be able to expand the network, but also assume that like, there was a funding source available for it. And I have a bunch of slides that kind of go into kind of how we try to evaluate the additional services. So
I have a question. Even on the unconstrained, you're basing that cost estimate on a zero fare structure, or have fares been considered as resuming fares at some point?
yeah, this is all based on the zero fare structure at this point. Fares don't pay for a large percentage of transit services. So even if we start charging fares again, it's not going to be a huge difference. But like Pat got funding to have service, like free service for the next 3 years. So and they're pretty committed to trying to keep that.
Isn't some like the federal money based on ridership? So if ridership increases, aren't you kind of eligible for more federal funding also?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So this chart here is the baseline network is on the left, and on the right hand side is the constrained vision. And you can see kind of, we tried to compare the increase in services. So there's more residents that are going to have services that have more, like the routes would be more frequent. The colors kind of show the frequency of the buses. And then there's going to be more access to jobs and more lower income residents having more frequent service. Households without cars are going to have 24% more 15-minute service as compared to the baseline service that we have now. The residents of color will have more service as well and more frequent service. And then,
So can you explain the bar chart a little bit more? So this means that, looking at the right here, this means during the midday period of all residents, 8% of all residents have 10 minutes or
better service.
better service. So when you say near transit, what does this mean? Like how close is the coverage area?
Question. I can find out for you in the back.
I mean, isn't that really, the route serve that percentage of the population, probably some walkable distance stops?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it says actually.
Yeah, so one of the
It's no
footnotes-
gray, it's just really hard to read, half a mile, got it.
Do you want to look at the charts more?
No, I think it's good. I think that I understand it more now. At first, I was thinking that the time where the walk access times to their.
Oh,
But now I
yeah.
understand.
The times are like the frequency of the
Yeah.
buses and the stops. And so the next slide has, it compares the baseline network and then the unconstrained vision. So there's a lot more people who are closer to the stops, and then also they have much more frequent service. The jobs is increased to 56% of the population in the urbanized area are closer to a fixed route that runs every 10 minutes or better. And the residents of color are also having much higher level of service, and households without cars. And then another way to look at it is we have kind of a heat map. So the black dot is Fashion Square Mall, and this is the baseline of where you could be if you took a bus in 60 minutes. And then The pink area is for the constrained vision, it expands it a little bit. And the green area expands it a lot more, for the unconstrained vision. And you can see that there's like 72,000 jobs that are within 60 minutes of a bus route, 77, almost 78,000 residents, within 60 minutes, and it's a pretty large increase.
Could you go back to the other one, just so I can see the jobs for a second?
Wait.
25,000.
So that's the constraint, and then the baseline is almost 55,000.
So have they received a copy of this report?
This is on the website, and was it in the packet? Just a link to the website was in the packet, but I can send these out after.
I was gonna ask, there's such a big jump between the constrained and unconstrained in terms of the effectiveness. How resource intensive is it to do a couple more scenarios between the two? Just wondering how fine grained you can.
I can tell you that we've spent most of our budget on public engagement. We've added considerable amount to the scope as a response to the community asking us to do that. So we're already over budget. So we're not going to be.
Just thinking for future planning, it'd be good to know like how much gain you get from a little really constrained list if you really have to go to all the way to the unconstrained.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the things that the consultants think is that, like, we'll have kind of the unconstrained vision with the network, and we can, pick and choose from that and kind of build on it incrementally. So it'll be something that, you don't have to like implement all at once, but you can kind of implement pieces of it over the years.
Is it right to assume? Oh, sorry. Is it right to assume the cost of that constraint would go up if we start with the constraint and then kind of build on top of that?
So I think your question was, is it right to assume that the cost would go up if you built on top of the constraint? Right? Yeah.
Instead of just going straight for unconstrained, yeah.
Yeah, so the cost would go up as we added the services. Does that make sense?
Is your question, how much would it go up, or what increment would it go up by?
Yes. Sorry, it's tough because I'm getting feedback on my end, but the question was more that so the constrained vision is 35.5 million a year and unconstrained 70 million. But if we started with it built out the constrained vision, can we rightfully assume that if we started making our way towards the unconstrained vision that it wouldn't just be a $70 million price tag? Like, is it cheaper to go as far as possible at once?
I don't think necessarily, no. I think that a lot of this is services, so it's employees. So I don't think that investing all at once would make a big difference in the price. I mean, prices will change over time. They'll probably increase, so there's that.
Is another way of saying that, like, with the constrained vision, you have so many routes that run more frequently, 15-minute service routes. In theory, you could add another route. You don't have to go straight from up to the completely unconstrained vision. You could add on to certain routes, and that would gradually increase the cost to get there. I mean, the way I think you could think about that, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, I was also thinking too, that I don't know if this, what you meant, Greg, that like on one particular route, is there kind of two layers of cost if you, like on a particular route, is there two layers of cost if you increase to 15 minutes and then later increase to 10 minutes?
Agreed.
Like is the combined cost of those two increases more than just if you went to 10 minutes originally?
Not really, I'll just answer that question. So unlike roadway construction, where you do have like significant upstart costs, like with construction, in this case, it's mostly the number of buses available and the number of drivers, so it's labor plus equipment and gas. So no, not really.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, oh, you didn't. I was gonna skip these next two slides. I don't know how much time we have. Actually, we probably have one. Yeah, we'll do it. So this slide is another way of looking at job access for the constrained network. And so the green dots are in kind of the amount of increase in access to jobs using the constrained services. And then the next slide is the unconstrained network, and you can see there's a pretty large increase in access to jobs. And then there's the next slide shows the average job access change. And again, you can see that, you know, it's a pretty big increase. So the red is a 30-minute ride to the job, and they count it door to door. So it's like walking to the route, you know, getting the bus, walking to the door of the employer.
Is baseline today no change?
Yeah, except so today they use the baseline of what CAT plans on having for their routes. CAT did like kind of a route update, but they haven't implemented entirely yet. So it's not the like current services that are happening on the road, it's the services that we, well, yeah.
It's not so bad. You have to live in Washington. You start with an hour is the first, and then you go up from there. So you have to have everybody drive from Washington, don't complain.
Yeah, and I'm gonna skip this slide. Yeah. So for the rural areas, currently, most of the rural areas have a circulator service and a connect service. And the circulator service is kind of door-to-door service within the county, and then the connect service connects usually from like you know, kind of urban area in the rural county to Charlottesville. So a lot of people, and it's usually like 2 days a week. And so a lot of people, and it picks you up in the morning and then it brings you home in the afternoon, kind of late afternoon. So a lot of people use it for medical appointments, older people, and you know, they have to make their appointments on like a Tuesday or Thursday only, and they have to stay at their doctor's office all day and wait for their ride, which is difficult for some people, especially if you're not feeling well. So the proposed vision would have these services all day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And it would also have it on Saturday and Sunday. One of the things that we heard in our focus group was that people who work service jobs work on the weekends a lot and in the evenings, and they're not able to get a ride home from work, or they have to take taxis on the weekends, and in the rural areas where most of them live, because it's lower income housing, they're not able to get a taxi on a Sunday. So this will be really helpful for a lot of people.
When you do something like that, you have an assumption about how many additional transit vehicles you need, buses and mechanics. Is that all modeled in, mechanics in particular?
Well, it's not going to be in this report because they looked at like the number of hours for drivers and that for the cost, to calculate the cost, but they didn't add in all of the other stuff. So John and Kat, they gave us their kind of cost for an hour of service. And that would be like, you know, kind of the cost of the vehicle, that would include the cost of mechanics and running the office and all of that, plus the cost of the driver.
I'm unclear. Is it including the other costs or just the driver cost?
So the cost is included, but it's not broken out. So there's, the service hour cost. And that cost includes all of the costs that go into providing that hour of service. So that would be, mechanics, all of that. But Pat just said, this is how much it costs us to provide an hour of service.
And that includes all the backup, the maintenance and
Yeah.
placement costs and all that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, on the previous slide, I noticed that for the rural circulators, that only Louisa had a different schedule. Is there a particular reason why that county went for the 1 hour earlier?
That was Louisa's choice. They decided that they wanted to do that for their residents. They also have, service every day, well, except for the weekends. So that was very nice of Louisa to do.
Well, the existing service, they have service.
Yeah.
They already.
This is their existing service, this slide.
So their existing service starts at 6 a.m.
Gotcha,
And so
yeah.
the proposed is also 6 a.m.
Right, okay.
Keeping that consistent.
You know what they were assuming the cost per hour for service?
I don't know about, no, I don't know. I think that when we were looking at the micro transit service, the cost was around $100 an hour for that service, which is an urban service. So it would be a different cost for rural, but. Yeah, and then, so these are maps that show, this is the existing network. Kind of shows the urban network and the rural, and the colors correspond with times. So like red and the dark red are like 15 and 10 minutes, and then the blues are, 30 and 60 minutes. And these are the connect services are lines going out to the rural counties. And then the next one is the unconstrained or constrained. Unconstrained. It's the unconstrained. So this would be what they propose, kind of looking at it as a map instead of the charts. So there's a lot more red, there's a lot more buses that are every 10 minutes and every 15 minutes. There's a bus rapid transit line that goes up and down Route 29 with every 10-minute service. And then these rural routes, the connector routes, go out to the rural communities every 60 minutes, and it would be, the 7 days a week. And then the constrained vision, these are just maps for the constrained vision. The service is not as frequent for the rural routes and also not as frequent for the urban routes, and there's not a bus rapid transit on Route 29. So again, these are kind of the frequency and the approximate hours of service for the network. And this is what we currently have, like the baseline. And then the next slide is for the constrained vision. And so there's an increase in the amount of time, the number of buses that are providing services. And then finally, our engagement strategy. We have we have a survey that's open online. We also have a paper survey. We have presented to all of the elected bodies for all of the counties that were in the study, and the City of Charlottesville. We have the project website. We conducted some focus group discussions with transit-dependent populations. We had a transit, like an open house event at the transit center to talk with bus riders. And we also had a translator there who got surveys from bus riders who speak Spanish. And we had a in Spanish session at San Ferreras with a translator. to do that. Both of the surveys are also in Spanish. And we did a virtual open house event. I've been presenting at other committees. And I'm looking for more, I'm hoping actually you guys can kind of help me out for more engagement opportunities. So if you know of any of the public events that you think that our staff could go to take surveys and talk with the public about their transit needs, that would be really helpful if you guys have any more ideas about that.
What's the time, like when you hoping to close that? So yet this summer or how?
Yeah, so the survey closed, we wanted to wrap up the study in August, and the survey was going to close this Friday, but we extended it. So we have about 150 surveys and we'd like to get about 100. So we're hoping to have like another 2 or 3 weeks of public engagement. And then wrap it up. So
Gone to some of the retirement homes and just left forms there for them to fill out, as opposed to being online. And then,
yeah, we have, we placed flyers at like grocery stores, community centers, libraries, like all of the communities. Yeah, but we also hit the housing, low-income housing developments. And we could definitely look at the trends.
I was trying to think of the senior citizens as opposed to those, I mean, in addition. That's the try.
Yeah, thanks. And the businesses too.
I really think just drop a form. Well, they're more likely to go online, but I would double some forms.
Yeah. Any other questions or ideas for public engagement?
Albemarle County has the CACs, the Community Advisory Council.
Yeah, I presented to most of them and they were really not interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of them told me that because this was like, it goes out to 2045 as our horizon, and he was like, well, we're gonna be dead by then, so we don't care. and why are we here with this?
Okay.
Not somewhere like Dairy Central that has just a lot of people moving through for all different.
Where?
Oh, Dairy Central.
Dairy, oh, the dairy.
There's a new dairy market
Yeah.
over there. It's got a few different names.
Yeah, okay,
So with all the different food vendors, always a lot of people going through there.
Yeah,
okay,
that's not a bad idea then. Sure.
yeah.
There have been some basketball events. I think it might be like a basketball tournament, like at Consular Park. And whenever I pass by there, there's like tons and tons of people. So I don't know if you can get engaged with that.
Okay, thanks.
And then have you done basic social media outreach, Facebook and all that stuff?
Yeah, so we've got like a Facebook boost, the ad campaign. And we also actually, we had flyers, we mailed flyers to low-income neighborhoods. Or postcards.
Do a raffle maybe.
Yeah, actually, the survey, we got grocery cards, gift cards, because we paid everybody to participate in the focus groups. And so for the survey, we said you can win a $25 gift card to a grocery store. And I thought like it was gonna be a really big thing, and people were like, nah, that's okay.
Can I ask you why is Fashion Mall sort of the centroid of the area? Is that how you selected it? Or why did you put Fashion Mall as the black dot in the middle?
Oh, yeah, that's just kind of like a center of the area, but also a lot of the buses meet there to transfer.
Yes.
And that's the third most popular stop for people. A lot of people, they don't go to Fashion Square Mall, but they get off and they walk places
Yeah.
because there's no stops at the places that they need to go to up there. So they get off at that stop and they walk to the places.
I will give you one thing that that's about at night. I've heard that people, the elderly in particular, are uncomfortable.
It's very dark.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I don't know how you take that into account too, as part of, as you're building out, you also have to make sure the stops are reasonable for people to stand at. And
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that from not only older people, but people, the restaurant workers don't feel comfortable trying to walk home in the dark.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys.
Is potential safety improvement, PSI interactive website. I think Ryan's just gonna bring it up just so, just to basically introduce you all that it exists. When you bring it up, it comes up in the center in the Richmond area, I believe, so you have to kind of navigate around on the map to get close to Charlottesville, but when you do, you can find intersections that VDOT has identified for potential safety improvement. So it's kind of gives you an advanced look at what VDOT's going to be focusing on, their planning efforts and funding and so forth, before, it actually becomes a smart scale application or something like that. So it's kind of a future look at what there is. And that's really about all I'm going to say about it. The link to the website's in the agenda, so you can easily find it, and just, you can scan around it and see what you see. And with each of the points that's identified, there's metadata that goes with it. That's, number of accidents and that sort of thing. It's kind of interesting. At least I thought it was. So if you want to look at it, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. And I think that's all I'm going to say about it, unless there's any questions. But
Does that have number of accidents? Is that how they were designated?
as for needing safety improvements, that's correct. Yeah. They look at crash data and say that that intersection's fairly dangerous, so we ought to do something about it. Which is, it's good to know that they're looking at that kind of thing.
And I'd have one more, there is a ranking, I was see this one here, we got ranked number one on the most dangerous intersection in the district.
Yeah.
I think all these, deal directly in the MPO area or, an important piece of information. But the way the smart scale funding is for a lot of the portions of public district that are outside of the MPO or outside of urban development areas, PDA, you're going to find those localities that somebody can access smart scale is through the safety component. So it's really critical outside. I know you all wasn't focused in the MPO area, but outside of the MPO area, we need some, that's how they can access smart scale funding is food safety. Yeah. So the ranking, the higher the ranking is, the more dangerous the intersection. So it's important in the MPO area, but I think there's other ways to access it for transit project funding or transportation funding, besides the solely safety, but this is very informational in that.
Yeah. And this is maybe a nuance, but it says the total crash. Is that an incident where there's a police report filed? Is that what that means?
Yeah.
So it's all very, it's not preventative. It's after the fact, hey, this area is dangerous, so we need to fix it. Let's focus on improving areas before there's a crash. Yeah.
And the crashes are all vehicle specific, that incorporates any kind of bicycle pedestrian incidents?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Hey, this is Chuck from VDOT. I can use this data all the time. for both prepping for smart scale with the localities, as well as looking for locations for improvements. It includes all the crashes, whether it's bike and vehicle, pedestrian and vehicle. And then we'll go through and pull the actual crash reports once that locations are identified, and then we'll develop a report based on those that crash data. And they update this this is the first time it's been updated in probably since the 2014 to 2018 crash data. This is based on the 2016 to 2020 crash data. The 2021 crash data just came out, so we haven't updated it with that data yet.
So is this for all time for those intersections, or is it just for that time period?
It's just for that time period. It's on a 5-year running cycle. So every like this, the one we're doing now is from 17 to 21, which that data is not out yet.
I have a quick question. I know that a couple of years ago, there was a separate database, the CTAC, that was like focused on pedestrian safety. Is that also being updated, or is that just rolled into this now?
I think it's rolled into this now. I'm not positive. I'd have to check with traffic engineering.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? If not, Ryan, we'll go with the smart scale.
Yeah, one more question.
Oh, go ahead.
I've heard from a number of neighborhood associations talking about issues on the roads in their neighborhood, and this is, very local, but beyond getting a statistic about a crash, what can a neighborhood do to highlight a dangerous intersection, or what they deem to be dangerous, even if there's not significant crashes there? Is there something? Who does community member contact? I know that's very local, but any insight there?
So are you talking about City of Charlottesville or one of the counties?
Both or either, yeah.
For City of Charlottesville, if you want to reach out to the state traffic engineer, I think that's running something right now. For anything in the counties, I think you'd be reaching out to the VDOT.
Yeah, you'd reach out to Carrie Shepard at the VDOT residency office for anything that's in the county.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah. So as the committee knows, the MPO has applied for 4 projects for smart scale round 5. There are 4 additional projects that the PDC will be applying for. This map here, you've seen some more of it before, but this map is an overview of those projects. Thanks to Mr. Michael Barnes and Mr. Chuck Blackman and VDOT, we were able to supply some design sketches. These are all preliminary. They're not final design sketches at all. But provided for the committee so that you can see these 4 projects. This here is US 250 at Shadwell. It's a displaced left turn. I don't particularly want to go into too much detail in these projects, but US 250, 759 Wilson Road, roundabout. US 250, Northern Road, pedestrian improvements. Crosswalks, sidewalk on the south side of Route 250. US 250, Peter Jefferson, through that parking lot. Right now, details are being worked out about the number of
parking spaces that will have. And you can see that the median crossing comes off. Got a dedicated right turn lane here and most of that. Hydraulic road, District Avenue, around that. Of course, this project is there to, the same shop for that way. Awesome. Avon Street multimodal project, from Grand Avenue to Avon here. Share these path, across this creek, all the way to Colorado and Avenue. And then up, cycle transition. I believe there's a road like. And then Fifth Street multimodal, this is from Harris Road to the Holiday Inn. I think right now we're calling it a 8 shared use path. There's a north side and west side, Fifth Street. This map at the end is the northern map. So basically, VDOT requires, depending on the type of project, determines the buffer area. And so basically, in the final application process, the MPO has to look at the economic development plan, the site plans for commercial development that occurred in the past 2 years. I have received those from the city and the county, and there are about 35 to 40 projects. So between now and August 1st, I'm going to be working on finalizing the smart scale applications for those 8 projects. Much of that will be the development. Any questions about Michael, Chuck, I think there will be some cost estimates have not been determined. We have some preliminary cost estimates, but they will be finalized. And that's all I have.
Can I ask it? You got it. I was just gonna go back to the hydraulic road. I'm gonna be lazy a little bit. I couldn't quite place it's hydraulic road and what's it?
District Avenue.
District Avenue.
The one that comes out of the Trader Joe's.
Stone, yeah.
It's the one that comes out of Trader Joe's? Oh, okay.
No,
Well,
it's
it's
the
not.
one on movie theater.
The next one,
Yeah.
yeah. The one that's.
Yeah, I think building's a movie theater, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
there you
Oh,
go.
that's what, so it's coming out, oh, okay, so.
yeah,
Here's
north
District Avenue.
of that, or west of that.
This is Cedar.
It's a traffic light right now.
Yeah, and why do they want to replace it?
Because they're gonna eliminate the left turns from hydraulic onto US 29 from both directions. They have to have a way to make a U-turn. That's the reason.
And I think this was verified in the hydraulic 29, 250 study that was done.
Okay, all right, fine.
So I think they're already doing one as part of the previously approved smart scale application on the east side of 29.
Yes.
This would be the.
Hillsdale and hydraulic, yeah, that's part of
But
the.
that I'm aware of, yeah, I was sort of couldn't work. I was like, it's lazy, it didn't look up. Thank you.
Only the, oh,
I was gonna switch to different projects, but it's still on that. I was gonna ask about the slides 9 and 10 with the one that the city canceled.
They're just like mountain dust, there's not enough space, if you look like mountains. Anyway.
Yeah, so can you explain kind of what's being proposed for Fifth Street and slide 9 and how kind of that would have connected into the city project if it wasn't canceled?
Harris
I
Street.
guess I just wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and Michael, please, chime in, but basically, the city project, I think, was tentatively, the limits were, Elliott Avenue to Harris Road. Essentially thinking about having two separate applications. Within a bigger private one, so like Elliott to Bailey Road and then Bailey Road to Harris. The city did ultimately, start not to submit an application, so I don't know the details about that. But this project, would, have multimodal facilities on, Fifth Street, Harris to, Fifth Street Station Parkway. On the west side of, Fifth, we will have, the Sheridan's path. We will have, a median crossover here into the food line, will be shopping center.
Yeah, because they're eliminating the left turn from northbound Fifth.
I guess I was wondering if this means like, if this were approved, it would be essentially creating a great new mixed use path and then it would stop at Harris and wouldn't continue into the city.
That's, I mean, at some point,
Yeah.
maybe that's a future project, yeah, for
Yeah, as far as I remember, I think the city, don't quote me, wanted to just delay it. They didn't want to not do it. They just weren't sure how to best approach that portion to do there. I think there were a lot of ideas, and one of them was making a bus lane and then a vehicle lane, how to slow traffic down, and I don't think anybody settled on an idea with enough time for the smart scale run.
Yeah, I was a little confused about that because I thought they were going to do it or attempt to do a trial. Last time that I heard about it, but that was, I feel like it was a couple months ago. But you're saying that it just like wouldn't work out time-wise?
Yeah, basically, my understanding, the city went in a work session on this, back in June. And they were talking about several different concepts for how to make improvements between Harris up to Elliott, and Cherry intersection. So road dining, and I think that was sort of, I think it came out kind of a preferred, solution. If the road diet, make one lane of traffic in each way, and use the other ones, a bike lane or a bike bus lane. I think the city at the time was worried about all the add-on effects, how that would work. I think they were talking, like you said, about having some sort of trial period or something like that. But that wouldn't coincide with the application just due in 2 weeks. Okay. And so I don't know how much progress the city's made on that study.
All right, moving on. Brian, do you want to say anything about this memorandum about the technical working group for the 2050 LRTP?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, I do, and I apologize for those folks who are coming. And may not receive. Thank you. Thank you. So this is a memorandum to the MPO Policy Board. They will receive at their meeting July 27th. This memorandum basically outlines a vision or initiative that the planning director has. So basically, there will be a technical working group or the staff on the MPO to appoint a technical working group for the development of the 2050 LRTP. there are basically two groups. The first group is called the core, it's made up of city and county, transportation planning, PRPT, John, CAD, UDA, and Charlottesville Public Works. The supplemental group, land use planning from both the city and the county, climate action. One of the things that the planning director wants to incorporate in this 2050 RTP plan is a better relationship between climate mitigation. So we hope to bring on, if not Ms. Susan Elliott and Mr. Dave Bailey, who presented at the last meeting, someone from the department to help engage into the process. And then also Albemarle County Housing and City of Charlottesville. The supplemental group will not have to meet with the core group all the time, but they will be asked to participate at various points into the process to provide input. I should also note that the working group will be on the month that you guys and the tech committee and the policy board do not meet. So that way we help facilitate the information that comes out of those meetings to you all. At the July 27th MPO Policy Board meeting, staff will also be asking the MPO to approve RFP, request for proposals. The hope is to get a consultant on board to help with the development of the 2050 RTP. So the policy will be receiving both this technical working group memorandum and also draft RFP for consultants. Hopefully, we'll get the RFPs back for the proposals, then by September 2nd, and then so the consultant for that. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair. I don't know if you want to.
All right, future discussion topics. We have a little more time to.
Are we supposed to comment on this? As it says, this is going to CTAC for comment on that.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought it up, Mr. Matt. If you all have comments, please feel free. I mean, if you all have comments, we can definitely talk about it now. But if you have comments.
Well, one thing that struck me is that perhaps you want to include, if the county has an office of equity and inclusion, and maybe you want to include that in the supplemental group. And the other sort of body I think might be interesting to include, because we're talking a lot about it, is the school boards. They use they're now starting to talk about using public transportation as well as, and all sorts of other factors. As you know, we're reading about it. It seems to me they also be involved in some, well.
Yes, yes.
I was gonna say, I think at least Charlottesville has a specific bike ped planner that right now, I can't remember if the county side too has one. So maybe I don't know if transportation planning was meant to encompass all of it, but just making sure we have specific bike ped people too.
Yes.
And then for UVA, is there a separate, is like the university transit system covered under the architect, or is that?
Yes, I think so. I think Mr. Bill Palmer sits on the MPO tech, and he's an MPO tech, and he also but I can definitely make sure that we will. I definitely different.
Yeah, just like the architect goes for those on like the land planning side, and then includes the transit side too.
Yeah, I think that's.
You could also consider a chamber of commerce.
There's also, I think, the Office of Community Solutions in Charlottesville.
Office of Community Solutions.
I think so. It's called Alex. Yeah.
So, is that she's on the regional.
Yeah, that one, the other.
You mentioned, both the bodies and factors. I'm not sure what factors exactly are included in this memo. I just think that this, obviously, we just read it. Maybe we understand the intent. Factors per se.
And Mr. Matt,
Then reading what it said.
Second page. Under recommendation.
Maybe we want to leave that open a little bit, and if there are some things that we want to discuss, come back to us with it.
So, and I definitely plan to, provide you all an update, yeah, there could be, yes, and other,
Okay.
I think this was, what we all need to know is very, very, see, for sure. But you all have additional recommendations relevant to me, but I won't have this back on the agenda.
Thank you.
Any other comments or? from the memorandum? No? All right, future discussion topics. Anybody have any ideas? I guess now's the time to throw them out there. We really have a plenty full meeting anyway, but you can always consider adding things.
Sure. A lot of federal money coming down to the states now that's accessible to MPOs. Wondering if that's on anyone's radar and how might they be planning to access some of that money?
Yeah, I'm glad to mention that, Mr. Gardner. So, the MPO Tech Committee and the MPO Policy Board will be receiving a presentation from Mr. Bill Rhodes, or someone in his office. I think it might be Mr. Rhodes. On the 26th or 27th. He is the executive director of Metropolitan Association of Metropolitan Organizations out of DC. So he will be zooming in to the tech and the policy board meetings to talk about the RLJA. And I will be sure to have those minutes and possibly that presentation for your September meeting. And then you mentioned that the electrical vehicles. I know that's been something that's been.
Thank you.
Speaking of transit planning, is there any, I'm sure there is collective ridership data, have they made any kind of reports or presentations about the trends on transit ridership in the region since the pandemic began? I've read things on the national scale now, I'm just wondering how locally these things.
Yeah, I think that's what. And John.
Just installed new counters for their ridership. So their data is not it's different than it was like, yeah, the pandemic. So I don't know if they have big data to have that comparison.
Another question, I know the state has been doing a statewide transit equity and modernization study as a result of the General Assembly bill. I want to say the final report is supposed to come out in the next couple of months. If state help with the state kind of summary of what was recommended from that once it's available.
So I think the power is also definitely.
If you look at the top there, I mean, I see there's something there, Department of Rail and Public Transportation. I'm always interested in rail, you know, in the sense of being able to go longer distances, just not just for work or in the intermediate area. I know Roanoke, for example, has had more rail line open. I wonder if we could get maybe at some point in time over the year, a little bit of a sense of what are the long-term plans for rail in this area. We've done this once before, but I don't remember so much. I think it would be good to update at this point.
Well, we just got our new additional service of rail. I think that already started or is it starting soon?
This recently started
Yeah,
last week.
From where to?
it's an additional daily train between Roanoke and Elwood.
Yes, so from Roanoke, yes, I'm interested more in this.
No, Roanoke to DC through Charlottesville.
I was gonna stop you now.
Yeah. So it's we already had one on the northeast line. We're now.
Right, that's what
additional.
I have people think, and I'm interested in knowing. So it's like, it hasn't showed up on Amtrak, but I just looked the other day, I couldn't. Because Amtrak has its own problems.
Well, while we're on the subject of DRPT, I had occasion to look at the, now this was right after the pandemic started, about fares and how, what percentage of transits were supported by fares. And it said like Roanoke's public transit is like 70% funded by fares. Whereas Charlottesville was, pre-pandemic was down in the 10–20% range. I know I've used public transit in San Diego, and there you can buy a monthly pass, and you can use the light rail and the buses. You get around pretty well in the whole city, but it costs, you know, $50 for a month's pass. So they do collect some money. I mean, there is some merit to fares, I guess is what it's at. It'd be interesting to look at that, you know, possibly in at least covering some of the funding costs. Because I know the microtransit, that was intended to be a fare associated with that, because it's basically competing with Uber and Lyft. I mean, where you know, it's an on-call service, and you know, somebody comes and picks you up, and you know, of course, they consolidate as many trips as they can, but yeah, I think you get expected to pay something. I think the idea was it would be less expensive than Uber or Lyft, but it wasn't going to be free. So I think, you know, it's just, I don't know. I know that you know, maybe fares are versus ridership, you know, higher the fare, the fewer the riders, but you know, I guess there's a point where, you know, free doesn't seem to get any more riders either. So I don't know, maybe if there's fares, then at least it might have a little more money to expand routes and things like that. Just be interesting to consider that.
Do we have any kind of demographic type data on ridership? I mean, that could maybe work with a program where people can kind of, you know, not pay the fare if they meet a certain threshold, or if there's a program that we're coming out with that. Because I feel like in Charlotte, I mean, I can't speak because I don't have the data, but well, I feel like most people here that do ride the buses are, you know, compared to people that drive car, I feel like most of the people, you know, around here that can afford to have a car and drive a car to work kind of do I mean, that might be a generalization. But we just want to make sure that it's people that need the, who rely on the bus system to go to work or go to the hospital can still do so.
I think it's something that ends up provide routes, but I think, I mean, you bring up a good point. I'd be really surprised if there was Roanoke. I was trying to look at to see if I could find this information, but like in a lot of the, like in Northern Virginia, like Alexandria, Dash, you know, that's got a higher fare box recovery percentage because of the higher ridership, but it's also a larger system. But a lot of the challenges, like if you're only getting 9% of your funding from the fare box, but it costs money to administer the collection of the fare, right? Like that's got, you know, the whole administration system that goes along with it, the technology that has to keep up. And then someplace like Charlottesville, we have the free trolley, which is probably, I'm gonna guess, one of the routes with higher ridership that's free for visitors anyway. It's just, you know, at what point does the cost outweigh the benefits? I think it's really hard for most smaller entities, and we are one of those.
Yeah, and there are some studies out there that show that, yeah, free fares do increase ridership. So, you know, it kind of depends. Yeah, it's that small amount of money worth the effort and the, you know, like.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
Just a thought.
It will be interesting to maybe see if, that seems like a lot of people are interested in about, like, ridership, care about, and all this stuff from the local perspective, so maybe if we can get a transit agency to come provide us that information, that would be good.
All right.
Could I just ask, when's the micro transit gonna start? I've forgotten. Is that or January? You might have me at now.
It was gonna start like, not this January, it would be like a year from now.
A year.
It's not, yeah, and they're having difficulty getting the vehicles,
I see.
so it might get pushed back even more than a year.
Okay, fine, thank you. It just is.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any members of the public or any additional matters from the public, so I guess I'm going to declare us adjourned.
Hey, Ben, Mr. Chairman, I'm new to the committee. Can we just go around and introduce ourselves before we break and adjourn?
Sure.
Sure. I am Lucas Dean. I'm the president of the City of Charlottesville. What else I should say? I work as a data scientist over at Crutchfield. Recently I've had to start commuting to work. So that's been interesting as like an experience of transportation transit. So yeah, I just mostly joined this so I could sort of see what's going on around Charlottesville as far as transit goes and try to be a voice for people who use transit.
Hi, everyone, my name is Greg Kabab. I'm here on behalf of the City of Charlottesville Planning Commission.
My name is Michael Barnes. Thank you for the indulgence. I'm the new VDOT planner for the district. Lived in the Charlottesville area for about 20 years and worked in county, worked in private sector development. I was the director of planning for Waynesboro for about a decade. So, and most recently, I was working with the city. VDOT represented to the city, helping manage money that they have for transportation projects, state and federal funding. So I've been on the job for about 3 months now. Of course, the virtual world is hard to meet people, so it's nice to be back.
Stuart Gardner, been on CTAC for about 3 years. Lived in Charlottesville since 2016, and I work in transportation electrification.
Travis Gala, I've been on, it's been about 5 years on CTAC, moved to Charlottesville in about 2007, and I work at the Southern Environmental Law Center in the education program. So work a lot just day-to-day on transportation policy.
Lee Condor, I've been on the CTAC 2 years. This is the first physical meeting I've been to. I joined during the pandemic, so this is the first time I've actually seen people with face to face other than on the screen. I'm an engineer with a interest in transportation. I propose all the designs, which VDOT just hates. Generally shoots down.
I've heard your name before.
Yeah.
But you take the time to do it. My name is Donna Chen. I live on CTAC. I guess at the same time as Stu, maybe a little bit more. I'm an assistant professor of transportation engineering at the University of Virginia. I teach the undergraduate course in transportation design. So I am here of interest in a professional capacity, but I'm also a resident of the city of Charlottesville. I am a bike commuter when the weather is good. I own an EV. I like transit. So just personal interest, of course.
Hi, I'm Marty Neff. I came here in 2017. I've been on CTAC for 3 years. I come from New York, so I really like I like subways. So if we get the subway, I'll really be happy. So I really am interested in public transportation, even though I use a car all the time.
I'm Ruth Emmerich. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Construction District.
Melissa Shannon, I'm the Senior Regional Planner for TJPDC, and I work on transit issues and transportation.
And you will be Ryan, the most regional planner, and the liaison for CTAC.
And then we have a couple people on Zoom. If you could introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Greg Weaver. I'm just a citizen of Charlottesville. My interest in joining the committee, in a nutshell, came from two main places. One was I've traveled to and lived for short periods in places with great transit, and so I'm really passionate about it from those experiences. But also, I chaired the Eco-Socialist Committee, the Charlottesville Democratic Socialists of America, and so I'm interested in the intersection of like climate change and equity in transit too.
Nicholas?
Is he frozen?
Well, Nicholas, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself to speak. Want to introduce yourself to the?
Hello.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've been sitting here for 1.5 hours and I haven't understood a single word. I don't know whether it was my laptop or what. The wording is not clear at all. So, but I guess that people are introducing themselves now. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm Nick Garber. I have lived in Charlottesville for over 40 years now. And I used to teach at the university at the civil engineering department. I was head of civil engineering for several years, and I'm now retired. I was asked to be in this committee because I've been teaching areas in transportation for some time now, and I've been interested particularly in the safety area, and look at how some of the things that are going on in the Albemarle Charlottesville area. I thought that by participating in this committee, I would be able to give my advice or suggestions when I feel necessary, and participate in other things that involve transportation as a whole for the whole area. I don't know whether you've heard anything that I've said.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's really modest. He actually co-authored the textbook on transportation design that, like, I think probably 1/3 of universities in North America use, including UVA.
Thank you very much for that.
Sure. All right. Well, then we are adjourned. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule.
Cheers.
Yeah. All right.
I believe it's been about 2.5 years since we've been here.